Welcome to Sarazanmai episode 9. You know, the show where we do weekly about the Kunihiko Ikehara show that makes less and less sense and somehow more and more sense every single week. Last week was somewhat of a closing of one chapter and an opening of a new one, I'd say. If that wasn't the end of Act 2, I don't know what is. We're on week 9, so we're well into Act 3 at this point. We're going to be the first part of Act 3. And Toei was leaving, Enta got shot, all kinds of weird stuff happened. Kazuki is at his absolute lowest that he's going to be for the rest of the show, in my opinion. And we don't really know what's going to happen. Preferably some kind of resolving arc, you know, where the Otter Kingdom and the Kappa Kingdom make peace or something of that nature. So without any further ado, let's get started. I kind of knew this was going to happen. So when they showed the Kappa Prince getting frozen last episode, I was like, first of all, this is really convenient that she just kicks him, like backflipped him into this freezing machine that just so happened to freeze him permanently. And that was what they were going to use to restrain the Otter people. And secondly, I had kind of suspected that she was going to be a double agent. This doesn't prove it either way, but the way she pushed him out into the street and then just made a really feeble effort to try and get him back doesn't really help. Also, if we were hoping for any like immediate resolution right off the bat, you can cancel that out because things just got a lot worse. If he was frozen before, he's disassembled now, literally deconstructed. That's I guess an inside joke. So we don't really know where it's going to go from here. If things were bad last episode, they're worse now. I'm going to assume by the end of this, they're going to be at their worst possible. They could be captured by the Otter Kingdom or something. Okay, show, you're going to make me real depressed by the end of this. Just realized that the OP is actually really, really good. I know I mentioned this last episode, but this shot right here of all of them, chasing after each other, and they show like the picture in the background of the person that they want to be connected to. This show is all about connections, and I really should be watching the OP and ED. So this is a like self smack in the face for not doing that, I guess. But this show is really good. It's all about connections. We're going to go full circle here. I'm just trying to, delay a little bit before I get into the episode and see some shit that I can't unsee. Okay, make me sad, show. Here we go. That was live action water, wasn't it? That very much looked like live action water. There have been live action segments in the past when they go towards that like kind of Rashomon-esque gate where they go through to become the Kappa boys, or when they go through to fight the Kappa zombies. I mean, are we gonna see more live action bits? I'm kind of on the like suspicious end of this because I just recently saw Man Mode's video about the point of SSSS Gridman. I'm gonna probably put the link in the description just because I'm trying to get more people to watch it, I guess. But he had mentioned that there was a very significant live action bit in that show, which now, has perked up my ears a little bit as to whether we're going to get any live action in this show. We most likely won't. I just thought I'd mention that. That's a way for me to plug some other dude's video that you're probably not going to watch. Warning, it is an hour long, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. So just short of an hour long. If you're going to watch that, highly recommended watch. Okay, back to the show. He said soba. It's going back. All the connections. Someone mentioned that soba means to be by your side. I just heard it there for the first time. Okay, show. I admit, you're very good. Okay. I mean, we knew this, but they haven't shown us this explicitly. Also, that food reaction scene was like some Food Wars level stuff. Okay, back to the show. Okay, that was the exact, like, oh no, they did, that's the dance that they did when they turn into, when they do the thing where they murder the person and make the Kappa zombie. Okay, why is the otter singing it? Is the otter somehow going to, turn them into Kappa zombies or something? I don't know. I probably should, not assume the wrong thing about this Asakusa Sara lady because it seems like she's trying to put him back together. So that's good at least. The art style of this episode seems like weirdly off. Especially this shot right here. Kazuki looks extremely low poly. Like, look at the details in his hands. There's missing bits in the lines. That usually indicates like 3D model being used. Interesting that they chose to go for this in this episode, episode 9. We're almost all the way through and they're now dipping to this. Which is kind of weird because in that scene where he was banging against the hospital door, I wanted to point out how like they're using these 3D backgrounds, but they're doing 2D animation. But now looking at this model, it makes me think that maybe they were doing 3D animation the whole time. I will say that except for this one particular frame where it's kind of janky looking, overall the use of 3D in this show is extremely good. And if this is like the, new standard setter for what we should expect for 3D animation, like I would be perfectly happy with that. That being said, the 2D does look better to me. All the Kappa shots all of them always have more personality when it's 2D, especially like the dancing and the movement and stuff. But for some of the background shots and like the cars in like, establishing shots, I don't mind if it's 3D. I'm fine with that. Just really weird to me that they chose this particular shot to go 3D in, which makes me think that there's going to be some kind of like camera movement, like high intensity action scene coming up. Well, let's see. And then they cut back to 2D animation. And the 2D in this show has looked consistently good. I feel like they have a different like lead animator or like a different kind of art style for this particular episode, because if you look at the way his hands are drawn, they're really different from the way they're usually drawn, which is more like kind of plain and closer to life. And Kazuki just looks kind of different. What it reminds me of is the like high budget action animated episodes of Naruto, where they just completely change the art style and then they get memed on because they tried hard, but they change the art style and it just adds so much to the action and fluidity of it. If you remember like the very first Naruto versus Sasuke fight, or the other Naruto versus Sasuke fight at the very end, or the Jiraiya versus Pain fight, all these fights had like different, like markedly different art styles from the other episodes, which are mostly just normal anime shots like static with lip flapping or whatever. And they really set the tone for how impactful those episodes were. I think we're getting something like that in this episode. Also, I wanted to say, they keep saying soba, soba, soba again and again this episode. I don't think that's a coincidence. So usually with the formula that we had at the very beginning of the show, we would be told expressly what the pun is for the episode, what the theme is of the episode that they're trying to tackle, and then we would see like events that follow that theme. I think now, since we're so in the late game of the show, we're like episode 9 of 12, we're at the point where they're not going to tell us explicitly what the pun is that we have to look for. And now we're like just going through the puns and as they casually drop them in conversation. They've mentioned it 5 times this episode and they haven't mentioned anything else, which leads me to believe that either they're going through the episodes again. I'd have to rewatch episodes 7 and 8 for this to make more sense, because I hadn't been paying attention to what words they were using in the dialogue. But if my theory is correct, which admittedly could be false, we're just going off the top of the head here, then it means that they're redoing the words that they did, but now they're not telling us anymore. They're just dropping it casually in conversation, which is effectively reworking through the themes of the show, but approaching it from like a more advanced viewpoint. And we could also be going into a place where they just use all of the puns in the same episode, which is what I think we're going to get to at the very end. And this is going to be such a vague reference that I doubt anyone's going to get it. So at the end of Chance the Rapper's Acid Rap album, there's a track which uses all the kind of melodic lead tracks of every single song before it and kind of meshes it into like this ultimate conclusion. If you haven't listened to the song, go listen to the song. I think it's the very last song on the album. I really think that's the kind of like harmonic combination we're going for here. And I can't think of any better way to describe it than that. It's a failure on my part, probably. There's probably better ways to explain it, but I feel like all the themes, all the notes of the themes that we've seen so far are going to kind of be played in harmony at the very end, and we're going to see how the underlying theme of connection, plays in with all of those. And I'm really looking forward to that, because as we've seen from the show, it does themes and stuff like that extremely well. So let's keep going. Okay, so I've kind of been on the side of his brother this whole time. I've kind of been saying that, oh, his brother only did what was necessary in order to keep, his brother in good stead. But when we were first introduced to his brother, he was presented as kind of a dick character, and then they flipped it at the end of that episode. But it feels like now we're back to dick, because there's no explanation for why you shot this perfectly harmless person in cold blood for absolutely no reason, and they were helping you. Why would you shoot someone like that? I have no clue. If this is the disillusionment which leads us to have Toei walk away from his brother, I'm perfectly fine with that, because his brother's just a giant dick who just does whatever the fuck he wants and then just blames weakness or some vague themes about people not surviving or good people or bad people. If you're going to say only good people are the ones who don't make it in this world, and you justify killing people by saying that he wasn't going to make it, are you just going to go around killing all the good people? Is that what your defense is here? Oh, I don't like his character at all. Okay, I hope he dies or something. Like, I hope the otters get him. I don't even care anymore. Yo, okay, so that scene was extremely weird. We're getting into the end game of this show, and to kind of wrap up its bigger points, it's kind of having to remove itself from like the narrative that it had established so far and kind of dip into these more abstract, like kind of symbolic, like scenes that kind of just say things, and we have to put together the things that they say. So that means I can't like say everything that I want to about that scene. So let me just try to condense it a little bit. So the otters are like making one of their own people dance to the desires that they have. And it seems to me that they're trying to do that to all of the society here as well. Like they're trying to make them dance to desires. And he seems like he was kind of buying into it. So to me, that's kind of like a Matrix narrative, right? Like they give you what you want, but what they give you is not what you want. And even like, it's not even real. I don't know. It's so like you could say so much about all this stuff. Like the otters here represent like the like authority figure. They represent like the state. So anything you could say about what I just said, you could put in the context of the state, like opiate of the masses, like deluding people into a false sense of subservience or anything like that. There's so much you could say about that. And that's kind of what people have been saying about the show is like, one of the comments in like this show's like posting was like, you need an IQ of like 200, you need 200 IQ, you need a very high IQ to understand this show. And I don't think it's really like IQ. I think you just need like, you can put anything in the show into any kind of contextual framework that you want. And by doing so, you can like extract meanings from it that it may not have had, right? And that's kind of like the underlying like belief of like any kind of literary critique is that the text can be interpreted in any way you want it to be interpreted in, as long as you provide evidence for what you're trying to say. So to me, like it doesn't make sense to say that there's one point to this show, because I don't think there's any one point to this show. Like it's abstract enough and general enough that you can interpret it in any way that you see fit and extract the meanings that you want from it. So anything that I say about this show is really just me applying my own biases and beliefs and like perspectives onto the show and trying to glean some sense of meaning about it. So if I were criticizing me in this moment, I would say, for example, why did you immediately jump to state? You could probably also go to like some kind of like betrayal, like interpersonal connections. You could talk about like or anything of that kind of thing. You could do whatever you want, really. Now, now that we're moving on to the dishes of hope, I'd be interested to see what they end up using the dishes of hope for, because this guy has 4 of them. They need 1 more to get the wish. And we're in episode 9, so it leads me to believe that the wish is going to happen sometime soon. What would the wish of the state be? Seeing as how I'm clearly in this kind of power structure narrative, and that's how I choose to interpret these scenes. If I were the state, what kind of wish would I want to make? Would I want to make like some kind of wish where I get absolute power and control over things, over people's desires and their love and everything that they think? For example, this is what the state was trying to do in George Orwell's 1984, is that they were not only trying to shape the way that people thought, they were also trying to shape the way of what people could think about by like altering language and all that stuff. Is that the kind of power that the Otter Kingdom is looking for? We haven't been told they haven't made any explicit references to the machinery of the state, other than literally showing us machinery. And they have made some like jabs at soullessness of machines. So you could even interpret it in that sense, like a literal Matrix sense, and be like, hey, these are machines that have no heart, and we are humans that have heart. You could interpret it in like a man versus machine kind of way. There are many interpretations is what I'm basically trying to say. So don't take anything I say as gospel. And as always, leave your thoughts, your long... I will read all the thoughts. I usually do. I comment or I reply to all the comments on these videos usually. So tell me what you think of this episode, because we're descending into the symbolic and, you know, deeply abstract. So there's not really much you can say concrete about the show anymore. And I enjoy it all the more for that fact, because the less concrete there is to say, it means the more you can say, you can just keep talking. And that's kind of what I do. So without further ado, let's keep going. Yo, okay, episode. Don't tease me like that. You can't end 2 separate episodes with someone shooting someone. That's called being a tease, okay? That's called being a tease, and I won't have it. I know for a fact you're not going to shoot 2 people. You can't just provoke me by pretending that you did. Okay, episode? We can't have that. I want to connect, but I can't. Oh my god. Okay. So the title of the episode for people who aren't watching on Crunchyroll, the title of the episode is I Want to Connect, but I can't express it now. Someone mentioned in the comments in the previous video that they changed the shadows a little bit in the ending. So I'm going to watch the ending, then we're going to watch the post-credit scene, then we're going to talk about this. Okay, let's go. So that was episode 9, which ended with probably the most touching montage I've seen this year, set to just some of the most like slow, painful piano music. And really that wraps up Toei's arc for me, right? Because his whole life he's been thinking about only his brother. His family was taken from him. All he had was his brother. And he just attempted to reconcile like what he knew about his brother to be true, that he was a good, caring person, with the outward behavior that he, you know, displayed to the public. That is, he's a criminal. He shot people. He killed 3 people this episode, and he's fine with that, because when you have someone that close to you, you don't really care about what they do, because them to you, they're always good people, because you know them in a way that nobody else knows them. And he knew his brother in a way that nobody else knew his brother. And to him, it didn't matter if his brother was a bad person, quote unquote, because to him, he'd always be his brother, and there's nothing you could do to change that. And we really saw that come to a head right at the end, when he still had in his pocket that picture of Toei from when he was a little kid, and he did his best to try to take care of him in the only way he knew how. And maybe some of his philosophies were diluted, and maybe some of his thoughts weren't the best, and the actions that he took to try and carry out this protective instinct maybe wasn't in the best interest of his brother in the long run. But he did try, and for that he did deserve some appreciation. And Toei, understandably, when you lose a person that close to you, you really can't put into words what it means to someone when you lose someone that close. And I think Toei's going to see now, like, the name of the episode is I Want to Connect, but I Can't Express It. And we have 2 examples of that in this episode. So you have his brother loved him the whole time, but he couldn't express his emotion because that's just how it works. And Enta couldn't express his affection for Kazuki until very recently. And this is just kind of how it goes. And I really feel like this show is reaching ahead. It's at a point where it's getting to me emotionally in every single episode. And some people have this show like lower down on their list. Like some people like Carol and Tuesday over this show, which I can't understand. And if you need to understand, then you can watch the Carol and Tuesday video that comes out this week. It should come out a few days after this episode comes out, but I recorded it before this episode. That's YouTube for you. But I feel like this show is so emotionally resonant, and it really knows how to like use its characters to get these or hit these emotional beats that really strike a chord with me, and to all of you, I'm assuming, because you keep watching the show week to week. That we're getting to a point where if something bad happens to these characters, I'm really gonna feel bad. Like when his brother died, I really felt something, because even though he's not necessarily a good person, he did try his best. And you can't really judge someone for trying their best. You have to just accept that they tried, and the results are what the results are. And on that extreme down note, episode 10 is next week. We're getting into the double digits now. We've been doing this for 10 weeks. So stay tuned for that episode. Hopefully there's some resolution because things only got worse this episode. Maybe Enta didn't die immediately. He's a Kappa now, but what else did we get other than that? The Kappa Prince is back, I guess. We are going up in a way. There's going to be some kind of final showdown with that creepy Rayo guy who's, molesting his boyfriend. There's not much else to say. So, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you next week.